I want to make $1 million in 100 days using AI. That was the goal. And I put it out there for everybody. And I'm getting people in the comments that are like, wow, I've never been so invested in somebody's life ever. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh no. One of my family members who was very important to me, amazing man. At the time, I was a very stubborn young man, and I just told him, yeah, I think I'm gonna open up a barbershop. I know how to cut hair. I have relationships. I can build this. And he said, why don't you do something a little more possible? And at that point, I just decided I'm not going to tell anybody what my visions are anymore. I'm just going to do it. I had failed many times just trying to get in front of the camera and being there. So I'd say anybody who's trying to make content and feels a bit stuck with it, just make the next video and eventually you'll find yourself through it.
If you wanted to get 100,000 followers in 30 days and you wanted to use AI kind of in that process, what would be step one?
Let's just do it.
Let's pull it out.
Let's just do it.
Okay, today's episode is with Dom Ashburn. You may know him better as Mr.grateful. He's the expert on AI. He's the person that I go to when I'm looking to learn about the technology. And it's not just me. Dom has also worked with Meta, with Adobe, with Mindvalley to help educate them on how they can use AI and the benefits of AI. Dom's story is an interesting one. He went from dropping out of design school to starting his own agency to then becoming a content creator. And his initial steps in content creation were so frustrating to him. Nothing would work. He was posting videos and they were getting no traction. And one day, he decides that he's going to use ChatGPT as his social media manager, and he sets ChatGPT a challenge of getting him 100,000 followers in 30 days. He hit that 100,000 follower mark in 22 days. At the point that we're recording now, he just passed 300,000 followers. And really what you hear in this episode is Dom's unique approach of working with ChatGPT. There's a certain point in the episode where he literally pulls out his phone and you see him collaborate with ChatGPT on the question of how you can get your first 10,000 followers on Instagram. And so really what you're going to leave this episode with is an understanding of not only how to build an audience in an extremely short amount of time using AI as your helper, as your social media manager. We also dive deeper into how you can then monetize that audience and just build an overall great, successful creator business. I was looking at your Instagram and on your bio, it says, stay valuable in the age of AI.
Yeah.
And then when I go to your LinkedIn, it says, you work to keep humans valuable in the age of AI by teaching them how to use cutting-edge technologies like AI, 3D, and mixed reality design. And so here's where I want to begin. Can you start by just kind of sharing who you are? And then why is that point so important, that keeping humans valuable in the age of AI?
Well, I should probably update that. It's probably in like LinkedIn or something like that, but I need to update it because I'm not keeping people valuable in the age of AI through AI or through mixed realities anymore. It's more so keeping people valuable by allowing them to realize their own true nature and realize themselves. And what I mean by that is, in the age of AI, the utopia that all of the tech companies are working towards right now, whether they're saying it or not, is a world where we are essentially able to focus on any task that we choose because artificial intelligence is able to do any task a human can across all domains. If you listen to like Sam Altman, he says, I don't care if we're blowing millions or billions of dollars every year, we're getting to AGI. And AGI is artificial general intelligence. And artificial general intelligence is different from what we are using now, which is ANI, which is artificial narrow intelligence. And ANI is an artificial intelligence that's working with a very specific narrow task that it does. You think of like Tesla autopilot driving. You think of word prediction, word generation, like the large language models that we have now with ChatGPT. They're very narrow. They're supposed to do a very specific thing. AGI will be able to do any task a human can across the board. and mix knowledge from one domain to another. And in that case that we have that technology, there becomes an irrelevance to much of the work that we spend our lives doing right now. And many people identify with their career. They identify with the work that they do. They identify with their job, right? One of the first questions that you probably ask somebody when you meet them is like, what do you do? Which means, what do you do to make a living, right? What are you spending your time on? And sometimes it's even, people may even get embarrassed by saying, I'm just a stay-at-home person, right? Or I'm looking, I'm trying to find that thing, right? Or I'm an artist. Sometimes that can even be embarrassing because people identify so much with their careers. So to stay valuable in the age of AI, where a lot of people may not be able to then identify with their identity. And I'm talking, there are papers out right now that predict that AGI could be here by 2027. So this is 3 years out, 2.5 years out. In 2.5 years, we're not talking like decades here. Like we're talking like just a few years. In that case, how do you stay valuable? And that is why I have meditations on my website, simply because we identify so much with our reactivity and with our careers, reactive to our likes and dislikes. And one of the things that I try to do is just help people to come to the true nature of themselves, understand who they are, what they want, and how they want to live their lives. This is the opportunity to just choose how you want to live and align with that. There's no more doing things just because somebody else told you to do it, or your parents are going to be disappointed, or that's what you got a degree in. Like, choose how you want to live your life, because you are going to die, and there's a possibility that you are going to be replaced. That's inevitable. So just choose how you want to live your life, and I try to help people do that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I wanna get into your context and your story, because especially when it comes to AI and just in general, you think about things differently. And so I want to give people the context on like why that is. Before we do though, I wanted to read this quote that I heard from Mo Godot, who was the former chief business officer at Google X, which is like Google's like AI division. He paints quite like a doomsday apocalyptic kind of picture of AI and the effect it's going to have. He said, AI is the most existential challenge that humanity will ever face. This is bigger than climate change, way bigger than COVID. This will redefine the way that the world is in the next few years. And so I think it's quite a common narrative at the moment. We hear a lot of people kind of speaking of the dangers of AI. Your perspective's kind of different. You have a much more positive, optimistic perspective. And so I think when people think about like, AI will be able to do everything that I'm doing, or it might make me almost like obsolete in my job. Why do you take the positive outlook to that versus a lot of what we hear in the media at the moment?
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up in Cincinnati and Dayton, between households. And when I would go to Cincinnati, we'd go to a theme park called Kings Island. And in Kings Island, it's a bunch of like scary roller coasters. And that right there was like my utopia as a kid. Like, this is the place for fun. This is a place where I can go there, do whatever I want, get thrills, just have fun. And it was a place of like freedom, right? There's a lot of danger and there's a lot of danger with going up roller coasters and just building roller coasters in general, right? And if I were to spend my whole drive on my way to the roller coaster scared about the potential dangers of it, then I might not enjoy my time. As a kid, that was like my utopia, right? Now, that analogy doesn't totally translate to present day because, we have data and architecture around roller coasters to make sure that everybody's safe and nobody's died from it. You know what I'm saying? The reason why I take an optimistic approach today as an adult when it comes to artificial intelligence is because I believe in the power of visualization, and I believe in the power of the human mind. And I think that we're going to create what we imagine. I'm sure that you imagined your show. You imagined the following that you have. You
100%.
imagine some of the guests that you might have on before they ever happen, before you even maybe have even talked to them. You had this imagination of what you wanted. You visualized it first. People like the goats. Every goat always visualizes their wins before they do it, and they know that that's what's going to happen. We've created a visualization. We've planted visions in people's minds through media, through movies like The Terminator or Space Odyssey 2001, where we, iRobot, where we show people a potential future reality. And in that future potential reality, there's death and there's destruction, and it's at the robotic hands of AI,
Yeah.
right? I think that if you ever want to create anything in life that's good, you have to first imagine it as good. There hasn't been a visual planted in anyone's minds yet of what a utopia looks like. What does Kings Island look like in 2030? What is utopia? What does that even look like? What does a world look like that's amazing and positive because of artificial intelligence? Is anybody planting that idea? And I think that if we want to ever get to a positive world, we have to start planting seeds of positivity so that people know what they're working towards. If the only thing people are thinking of is the roller coaster's falling down, you flying off, seatbelt coming off, and you're flying out and everybody's dying and the roller coasters are collapsing, or in this case, artificial intelligence starts coding in languages that we don't understand just to manipulate us so that it can take over and start making decisions with its agency and super intelligence that don't align with human incentives, that's scary. And we don't want that. So it's good to think about it. However, if that's the only vision that's being planted in people's minds, then that's what we're going to create. That's what we will build if that's what we're visualizing. So it only makes sense to balance the scales with another perspective. And I'm not disengaging or disregarding the dangers of it, because there are dangers. A startup is not going to be able to handle super intelligence. Once it gets to super intelligence, it'll be in a governmental facility that even the government may have trouble locking down and protecting, right? But the first nation that has it will be the superpower of the world, and we need to make sure that we're planting a positive vision of what that world looks like when we get to it.
I want to get into how people can use AI right now to start building like a successful creator business. We'll get to that later. But just quickly, I have to ask about when you say super intelligence. So I'm not as well versed on this stuff as you. When you say super intelligence, what does that mean?
People like Leonardo da Vinci, how they would call him a polymath, somebody who is an expert, like really well versed in many areas. He was he painted masterpieces. At the same time, he was also doing amazing calculations and doing industrial engineering and design, right? You think of people like that in present day. For instance, like Elon Musk, he can use his intelligence across so many different domains, right? He can be in space, social media, and artificial intelligence and automobile production, right? He's able to use his intelligence across so many different domains and then take information from this domain and then apply it over here. And that's what polymaths are like. You'll hear them as Renaissance men. This is what these people are able to do, is take their intelligence and then build them across many domains. People who speak multiple languages, people who are able to do multiple martial arts and play instruments and are artistic, right? So if you can imagine, a super intelligence is something that is able to take information from any domain like that and mix its knowledge across those domains, but every single domain that's ever been known to man, and speak in any language. and not just human languages, but coding languages, and potentially even create its own language that would be unidentifiable or decoded by human beings, right? This intelligence that is able to not only predict, but create, and create based on the patterns that it sees across all of these, all of the domains. That is what like a super intelligence is. It would be able to, it would be able to control hardware. A lot of the hardware that we have has coding in it, like our cameras, our phones, our cars, anything with a computer in it has code behind it attached to the internet. It would then be able to take this information across all domains and then access and operate those as well. So the super intelligence is, it's superior in intelligence across every domain to every human being. That's what a super intelligence would be.
It's like the most elite level brain, but like it doesn't even exist organically. Like it's like just almost like a super brain, essentially. I would assume like 1,000 times, I don't know, 10,000 times, 100,000 times more powerful than any like man's brain, essentially. Which is why a lot of people are like afraid of it. But I think you actually make a really good point, which is in general, just as a general rule, a lot of the times our thoughts, our ideas, our fears, if they're left unchecked, can actually start to manifest into our reality. And so like when people are just pushing like this negative sentiment around AI specifically, it's like we're pushing ourselves towards that doomsday reality through those fears coming out. And so I love what you do because you kind of balance the picture with your content. You know what? I want to get into your story. And you spoke earlier about like dreaming or the power of visualization, having these ideas, this vision for what your life is going to be, and then manifesting it. I'm curious where that began for you. Like, even if we looked back at kind of the early context, what were some of those early dreams, those early kind of visions of what you would go on to achieve?
The first one that comes to mind actually is when I would work with my father on my school projects. I would just create school projects, like, using construction paper and, like different physical materials. Me and my dad would work on them together. And I'm talking like elementary school, you know what I'm saying? Like second, third grade is when that started. And one of the first visions that I had was on this assignment where we had to like we had to make like a typography map and just use like colored pencils. It was like a coloring book page almost, but we had to draw where the high parts were and then where like the low parts of the land were, using some different colors and things, and like almost build our own settlement. We were learning about like the history of America, and we had to draw like one of the settlements or whatever. Well, I had this idea of like making that real, and not just colored pencil, but like making it real. So I went home, told my dad about it. I told him my vision. He didn't know that the project was just on paper. I told him my vision of like what I wanted this to be. We went to the art store and we got like, the fake model trees and the glue and the like white, this like clear glue that would mold and look like water, and like moss and stuff. We're out like at the park gathering moss, and we went and created this like huge, like realistic looking settlement that I brought into class when I'm like, 6 years old, and everybody else has these like pieces of paper, you know what I'm saying? So everybody in the class is just like throwing their pieces of paper out, coming up and playing with this thing, right?
Yeah.
And that moment right there just made me realize like I can think beyond the assignment, and I can think beyond what is given to me, the tools that are given to me. I can describe my vision. Somebody will help me with it, and we can build it, and then it's going to make everybody in awe, right? So that moment was at such a young age, really helped me to continue doing that. But what happens as an adult, as you just get older, when you start to tell other people your visions, they're not like, yeah, let's go do it. They're like, I don't know if that's possible.
They're skeptical.
They're skeptical because it's not a make-believe like set anymore. It's real life. Things start to cost a lot of money. Things start to take time. And we are we are we are human beings that will eventually die. So you must be protective with your time, your energy, and your money. So I understand, but I've been more careful with sharing my visions that I have because people have been used to shutting them down,
Mm-hmm.
saying I don't think that's possible. So that was one of the first visions that I had as a kid, and then I just haven't stopped. And I think persevering through people telling you things aren't possible allows you to get to a point where you will make it possible, no matter what. And then you'll also be that person that will tell other people that that vision that you have, it is possible, and you can do it because I have. And not only that, but I failed in front of a lot of people too. You have to be willing to state your vision because you have to be willing for it to fail.
Mm.
And a great way of going about that is just treating your life like a science experiment. Treat your life like an experiment. I don't have goals. I have questions because every science experiment starts with a question, then a hypothesis, and then an experiment, and then data, and then a conclusion. That's a scientific method. So if you treat your life like a science experiment, instead of having these goals where if you don't meet them, you feel like you failed and now you have all this weight on you, open yourself up to asking a question. Can I become a billionaire? Can I reach 1 million followers? Can I build a school in a third world country? Whatever your thing is, right? Can I be the best? When you start with a question, it opens you up to the many possibilities of what your hypothesis and experiment for your life can be. And then you test things that separates you from the conclusion.
Mm.
It separates you from the relying on the outcome. Your value and your identity is no longer connected to the outcome, which has been a great tool for me when I have a vision. I no longer am so naive and stubborn and angry when people don't believe in it. I can just let go and say, it's just a question. I'm just curious about this and I'm going to explore it, right? Everybody else is so determined to shut you down from it. It's simply because they don't have the open-mindedness or curiosity to ask the same questions at that caliber. So that's on them at that point. You
Mm.
can continue to stay curious and have that curiosity as a child to say, what would happen if I did this?
Mm.
And once you make it, it really wows people
Mm.
and it expands their minds. So
It's actually one of the most powerful mindsets, frameworks that you can have is being able to detach from the outcome.
mhm.
So hard when you're ambitious, when you have like these just dead set goals in your brain, in your mind, it's so hard to have that detachment from the outcome. But all the best things come from that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Part of what I love of hearing you kind of explain that framework, like the scientific method of just asking questions, is it forces you to just be curious,
Mhm.
to be curious first, rather than trying to get this outcome. I'm trying to be rich, or I want to get more girls, or I want to be famous, or you can't do that. It's just a question. You have to lead with curiosity. It's a purer intent, and like the kind of the paradox to it, the irony of it, is that because of the kind of purity of that intent, you actually get the outcome.
Yeah.
But you weren't even aiming for it, but you get it.
Yeah.
And so you know what? Because when I was listening to you, I can see your eyes light up when you speak about bringing this science project, or this project, into the classroom, and the awe of the other kids.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like that's an important feeling for you. And so I'm curious if you've ever reflected on that. Like, why is that feeling of being able to kind of inspire awe in others? Like, why is that such a big thing for you?
That's a great question and great intuition and empathy to be able to recognize that in me when I'm speaking about it. Um, why is it that I want to inspire people? Well, uh, I don't know. yesterday was Father's Day, and I lost my father when I was 16, 17. And I think that maybe it's a way for me to allow him to kind of continue living through me. Like, I feel like that's the legacy that he gives me because he inspired that.
Mm.
He was the first person to show me, like, he created projects. Like, my dad never had a lot of money. He had a really hard time just like getting a grasp on life. But he was creating until the day he died. He was always creating, always writing like poetry or making these little projects. He remade the Ghostbusters like proton pack. He remade, like, he would just make random stuff. Like, he'd go to the dollar store and get plates and like glue them together and then get a red cup or like a green cup and put it underneath and make it look like a UFO ship with like a light beam coming down and put a light inside. Like, he was always creating. And I think that I want to make meaning of maybe his life and also give myself a positive outlook on my relationship with him as well. And I think I do that by continuing to want to inspire people the same way that he helped me to inspire other people just by helping me with a school project when I was a kid, you know? So maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so.
That makes sense. In a way, you're like paying it forward.
Sure.
Like the way that he inspired you, he allowed you to dream, to create. It's like you want to inspire that in others.
Yeah.
I think that makes complete sense.
Yeah. It's also an addiction.
Yeah.
It can be a vice at some point.
Yeah.
Of like wanting so badly to inspire somebody else that sometimes I make things overly complicated. Sometimes something more simple can be more impactful, and I'll go for something big that's going to take a lot of time, a lot of man hours, and really push me over the edge just so that I can get that moment of feeling like I inspired somebody and I impacted them, you know? I'm not sure if that's positive or negative yet. I think the world will see maybe after I'm gone if the effort that I'm putting into that is worthwhile. But it's something that I'm working on trying to balance, actually, and figuring out how I can make more of an impact with more flow rather than being so blunt force about it. So it's something that I'm actively working on. And this podcast is being caught in the middle of a chapter for me. You know, I'm actively reflecting on my life, actively deciding the directions that I want to take, you know, so maybe we can do we can rewind it and see where we are, you know.
Play back the tape.
Play it back and, you know, see where we are. But yeah, I'm sure we're catching other people in that footnote as well, right? We're catching other people in the middle of one of their chapters that's listening to this. So I hope that by hearing of somebody else that is also in the middle of one of their chapters and figuring out which direction they want to go, even after having such clarity on their motivations, is able to take a breath and relax. Just know, like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be cool. If you have a vision, it was given to you. It was given to you. And if you have a vision, if you have an idea in your mind, it is inevitable for it to manifest. So just take a breath and relax and give yourself space and grace along that process.
No,
Anyway.
I think that's a really great message. I think one of the things that's just difficult for any dreamer, for anyone that's like at an early age, they had these aspirations of what they'll be, is that there's a certain point, like you talk about like milestones in the story, there's a certain point where like the world gets involved, right?
Yeah.
I think when you're a kid and you're like, oh, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a singer, I want to be a football player, like a music artist, whatever it is, people encourage that way of thinking, that dreaming, thinking that you can be on this level. And then it gets to a point where it's like, nah, you have to be realistic now. What are you actually going to do? And there's now this pressure for you to have it figured out. know exactly what the picture, like you're working towards this track and this is when you're going to achieve it. There's all this expectation put on your dream now. And so I'm curious, when you reflect on kind of your story, where was the first moment where you started to feel that? You started to feel the expectation of like, no, now it needs to be realistic. It's not just the fun project that you're bringing into school and everyone's in awe of it. It's like, you need to be doing something right now that we can look at. And
Hmm.
when did that expectation of the world kind of come in?
Uh, yeah, I had somebody very important to me tell me, yeah, but you need to do something a little more possible. And the idea wasn't even that big. I just wanted to open up a barbershop because I was like, yeah, I can open up a barbershop. Like that'll bring me in some money while I chase my real dreams, you know? And they were like, yeah, you need to do something a little more possible. And granted, at the time, I had just dropped out of college and I didn't have any money and I wanted to open up a whole establishment. And they're like, yo, what? What are you doing? Somebody in that position needs to tell you, okay, how can we go about that? Let's come back to question. How can we go about that if you have an idea? How can we make that happen? And that was the first time. If we want to rewind a little bit, I went to design school at DAP in Cincinnati. It was design, architecture, art, and planning. And I got in through a fashion degree in their fashion program. And this was the time that like Virgil Abloh was really booming with Off-White. He was doing collaborations with IKEA and stuff at that time, with collaborations with Jordan. Uh, Kanye was releasing new waves of his like 350s. I think this was around like season 2 or 3 of Yeezy. Heron Preston was coming out with stuff. This is like a Cold Wall was coming out. There's like all these like black designers in fashion were really revolutionizing the fashion space.
Mm.
I went to school for graphic design, but they said, okay, we'll put you into fashion because graphics full. But if you do really well in fashion, then we'll put you into graphic design afterwards. I was like, okay, cool. Foundations is the same for everybody. I'm in there going through my foundations. They're teaching me drawing, 2D, 3D, and then art history, and then like sewing and pattern making and stuff. So I'm going through that, and it is rigorous. It's 80-hour weeks minimum of schoolwork every week. And one time I was going to sleep, and I was so grateful that I was going to get 4 hours of sleep that night. I was like so thankful, and my eyes just like shot open, and I was like, what? And I just came to this realization, like, dude, this is unhealthy. Like, you are beating yourself to death. And like, for what? Like, what are you even here for? What are you doing? Like, what's going on? You want to be like a rock star? Like, you want to be like Ye and Virgil and all this? Okay, well, like, is this where you need to be? And I just asked myself and kind of asked God and the ether, like the universe, is this where I need to be? Like, how can I achieve that goal? Not necessarily being like them, but having a significant impact and kind of being on my own, being independent. So I went to class the next day and I was in portfolio class, and they started handing out sheets of paper. And the sheets of paper were the list of companies that hire from that school. And they said, base your portfolio on the company that you want to work for. And it was at that moment that I realized, like, okay, the place isn't for me. The school is an amazing school. Their classes are super dope. I learned so much there during my time. I just realized that the thing that I wanted to do didn't align with that path. And that was cool. A more mature version of me that might have been a bit more timid might have said, oh, well, just stay in school, learn the skills that they're teaching you, work for a company, learn what the inside of a company looks like, and then you can go on to your path and like build your own thing, right? That's a safe method of doing it. That's what everybody told me to do. I just couldn't stomach it. I just didn't feel. I literally had just asked God, and the next day I get that. How can I not listen, right? I would rather listen to God and myself than my family, even though I love them.
Mm.
So I decided to leave school. I opened up a waffle stand in the cafe of that school. It was called Sticks. Me and my friend Brandon, which is ironically my dad's name, which is funny. And he helped me with this vision. Damn, I'm just making that connection. Yeah, he helped me with this vision to um, gather up some money so that I could start my own design and production agency. And it turned out that after I collected all of my colleagues' money from selling them like waffles in the morning on their way to class, I took that money, I hired an editor, bought a camera, and my first client for the production company was my sustainability professor at that school. And she had a company and she allowed me, her name is Liz Ricketts. She has a company called the OR is Present. She helps people in Ghana to create a more sustainable ecosystem and economy in Ghana. And I made a music video promoting her company. She paid me to do it. And it was like 75 people on the crew. We rented out the whole like gym. She let me write the whole thing, direct everybody, direct the editing, everything. She just gave me full control. And since then, I just decided like this is the path I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna continue to create and do it in a way that I choose to. And if I don't get the autonomy and the freedom to create in that way, in the way that they believed in me, then I'm not doing it. I just made that a standard for myself. I'm working for myself. I'm creating the things that I want to create, and I'm going to do it to make a positive impact on the world. Period. And if I'm not doing that, then it's if that's not the opportunity, then I'm not doing it. Right. So it just created a very clear line for me. But during that time, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and obviously as a 18-year-old, 19-year-old who just dropped out of school and has a production agency and they only have one client, you're trying to find money. You're trying to find ways to make money. And when I went to one of my family members who's very important to me, amazing man, our relationship has really evolved over time. I love him so much. But at the time, I was a very stubborn young man, and I just told him, yeah, I think I'm going to open up a barbershop. I know how to cut hair. I have relationships. I can build this. And he said, why don't you do something a little more possible? And at that point, I just decided, okay, I'm not going to tell anybody what my visions are anymore. I'm just going to do it. And I'll show people instead of doing it or instead of telling them. So now that's my thing. I just do it and then I tell people about it. I don't really project it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's powerful stuff. And you know what? It's interesting as I listen, and we even spoke about some of kind of like those childhood memories. It was the exact same process as as that school project, right? Like you have a certain idea, a certain vision, but then you actually take it further than what was initially thought of, and like the set with 75 people. It's like more than you could imagine, but it's like exactly in keeping. Something that I always tell myself is like I want to keep tapping into like that childlike wonder.
Yeah.
When we're children, it's just, we just want to explore. We just want to dream. And it's like you're tapping back into that. And you know what? I wanted to rewind just a little bit. Take me to that moment. You're sitting in the classroom in design school, and you've like, I'm sure like you've put a ton of work in. Like you've done, I don't know, months, years of like hours and hours and hours of work to get to this point. And you have these visions of like, what Virgil Abloh's doing, or Kanye West. I'm sure like Jerry Lorenzo, like these sort of names, right? And they tell you need to fit your resume basically, or who you are, to suit these companies. Why did you have such like almost like a visceral reaction to that? Like why was that something where you were like, okay, this is not the right place? Because I think for a lot of people, like the move to quit school or quit their job or anything, it's like so tough to take that step. But you were just incredibly motivated for it. So why is that?
I think I was at a point in my life where I felt like I had come to a realization around that time. And I realized that the future didn't exist. The future doesn't exist. The past doesn't exist. And when you realize that, like you actually feel that and you know it, you realize that the decisions that you have to make start now. Start right now. They're not this future opportunity that you're waiting for, this reason, this meaning, this motivation that you're waiting for, or this thing that you're waiting for to happen to you in the future. It doesn't exist. It's just not there. The only thing that exists as a matter of experience is right now. You have to accept where you are right now. That's the very first step. You have to accept where you are right now. Then, in your mind, have the idea of what you want. You have to decide what it is that you want. And I realized that I didn't want that. I just didn't want it. And I'm not going to continue on with something that I don't want to do, that I don't want for my life. And everybody needs to realize that they are going to die. There comes this like, it is delusional to think that there is time, that something's going to happen to you, or there's just going to be this. It's right now. Like, you're living life right now. Accept that, decide what you want, and then move in accordance to it. So many people wait. And I just didn't want to wait. I just did it now, and I trusted. I just had faith and I trusted. It might not give people much feeling of safety, but there is no guarantees. There's no guarantees of safety. Even if you spend your life doing what you think other people may want you to do, you have no idea what's in store for you down that lane either. So you might as well go do the thing that you want to do. That was just my idea. And I was young and stubborn about it. And I decided to continue down that same path. I mean, it was just as raw as that.
You know what's interesting? You said there's no guarantees of safety, and it's so true. But I think sometimes when we're at like an early stage, we don't want to like stand out. You don't want to make like too bold of a move, and then everyone is like seeing. I think for most people that's kind of like a thing. Like we go to university and it's like these very traditional tracks.
Yeah.
And so I can just tell, even when you were speaking about it, that is an important thing. There's no guarantee of safety. Is there like a certain experience that almost crystallized that for you? Like, was there something that it was pushing you to be like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to take the risk? Because I know it firsthand that when your parents, your family, friends have they have an expectation or a thought of what you should be doing, to go against that takes courage. And so when you talk about there's no guarantees of safety, like, what was the experience that in your mind was like, push that home?
I grew up in a pretty safe environment, I feel, which gave me probably a sense of safety that I've always been quite protected. I've always been protected, not necessarily by people, but just by like divine circumstances, it feels. And I think that everybody has at some point. If you're sitting here right now, if you're listening to this, you have also been protected. And there's a reason why you have been protected onto this point. Maybe think right now of a situation where things could have gone really bad, right? You could have gotten really hurt, or you could have died, or you could have been in jail, or anything like that. But something shifted and you were protected in that moment. In that moment, you got another opportunity, right? I feel like that had happened to me so many times in my life where I felt protected, where I knew that if I decided to take the safe route, then I would almost be giving my new opportunity in vain, right? But and then at the same time, it gives you a little bit of confidence that no matter what I do, I will be protected and I'm okay. And as long as I'm moving in alignment with my highest idea of myself, then there is nothing that can really hurt me more than myself. So I can't say it was a specific moment. I was given much freedom growing up. I grew up before like iPhones and stuff, so I was out and about. I was running around outside, until it got dark out, and then, just doing that every day.
Mm.
So I had a sense of independence and freedom growing up from a child, and that carried over as well. So I think that if you realize like you're alive right now, you're breathing, you've been protected up until this moment, and there's opportunity for you to take a risk. There's more risk in not taking the risk almost.
Mm.
So not any one particular story
Yeah, no, I get
I
you
can
there.
give you, but
I get you. It makes
okay.
complete sense.
All right.
Um, okay, so you leave design school, you start this design agency. Your first client is almost like one of your professors or like one of the people at the school, right? And that seems to have been a success. How do we get to the point that we are now? Where, like, I think even in the last kind of 18 months, 2 years, you undergo this challenge. Um, you start kind of you become a content creator essentially. You start, and AI is kind of like a central component, and this kind of understanding and this love for technology is like a central component of the content creation. When does that come into it, this whole content creation piece? Okay, so 6 months ago, I shared on this channel that I had this crazy goal of hitting 100,000 subscribers. Well, it's not as crazy as I thought. At the time when I said that, we had 3,000 subscribers, and we're so close right now to hitting 100,000. So please help us out with this goal, this crazy dream that I had. Hit that subscribe button. And here's what I can promise you if you do. We're going to take this podcast to another level. We're going to continue to scale the production, the guests, every little part of what we do, but I can't do it without your help. So please subscribe. Thank you for listening, and on to the show.
I had to start creating content because I was trying to get a job at an agency and nobody was hiring me because I didn't have any prior agency experience because I had chosen to drop out of school, do my own thing. And then it got to a point where my business, I was just failing. I was failing. I was trying to follow my passions in a way that was not succeeding. And I was failing over and over and over again. I tried doing branding, and the branding was just, you work with these clients who are, if anybody in design knows, like when you're doing branding, there's so many steps of approval that go down between you and the client, and that communication of back and forth can be very time consuming, right? And then these branding projects is really hard to land as an individual, or even if you have a couple of teams, because there's a bunch of big agencies and then individual freelancers that you can hire for really cheap, or these big companies who have a bunch of people and then they charge like massive amounts of money. And I knew that I was better than the individuals on like Fiverr who were doing it cheaply, but I didn't have a huge team to be able to do it like these like huge agencies, right? So I was trying to find these certain clients who were able to afford me, where I could do my best work and give that I would always go above and beyond, but I wanted to be paid for that. So trying to find those clients was really difficult for me. I had a really hard time selling. I had a really hard time in like the marketing of it. I knew that my skill was good, but I had a hard time selling myself and marketing myself. That was hard. So I had tried over and over again. I would get these clients, but it was clients that would come from like word of mouth. You know what I'm saying? I'd work with one person, like finally, okay, good, like got rent paid this month. And then somebody else would be like, oh yeah, he's pretty good. And randomly, like just at the right time, I get another inbound client like, yo, like thank God, you know what I'm saying? And I was just protected in that way. Where like, I don't know how it happened, but I would get an inbound client, they'd come to me, I'd work with them, and then another one would come just in time. And I was living like that, and it was getting exhausting. It was exhausting. I felt like I had no control over my income, over my brand, over my life. I'm spending all this time helping other people with their brands, and I'm not having enough time or knowledge to work on mine. So I got to a point where I was like, yo, I can't do this anymore. Like I was getting to a point where I was like, I was so afraid every month that that cortisol was just like, it was too much. I couldn't handle it. And I was at the point where I was just gonna quit. I was like, fine, I made the wrong choice in college. I shouldn't have dropped out. I'm sorry, family. I'm sorry, God. I'm sorry. I misunderstood everybody. Fine, I'll go get a job. And I wrote down my intentions and my emotions. I had 5 intentions. My intention was to be have a millionaire mentor who would freely give me information and guidance, was to be able to travel the world, was to be able to work, have creative freedom, was to make over, I don't know, I said like over $100,000 a year, and to have freedom to promote big ideas, right? Those are like my 5 things I wanted to do that year. And I said that I would feel, if I achieve this, then I would feel courageous, grateful, calm, confident, and satisfied. So I started going to all these tech events or all these like branding design events and stuff, meeting out with these different brand agency owners and recruiters and things, trying to get a job with this set intention in mind that once I get this job, I'm going to be able to hit these 5 things. I'll be creative and travel and have a mentor that's built an agency before that'll teach me. And it's just like, it's not working out. Everybody's giving me their business cards and emailing, and I'm talking to people and showing them my work, and like nobody's hiring me because I hadn't had experience before in an agency. I was doing everything myself. Even though the work was great, I didn't have agency experience, and I was still talking like me. I was still in there talking like me to the point where I'm like, they're like, nah, like we can't bring him in here. He's gonna try to change shit. You know what I'm saying? We're just gonna leave. We're gonna be safe. Like, nah, I'm not bringing his mind into this establishment. Um, and the reason why I say that is because I would tell them ideas and ways that I see their business could be improved in things before I was even hired. And so, you know what I'm saying? So
Like
it's
he's
like,
gonna start a revolution.
he's gonna
Off
say,
this. Oh my gosh.
yeah, maybe I just wasn't good enough at the time, and they just didn't think I was good enough. Maybe that's the case too, and I'm being grandiose. Either way, I decided, okay, well, I'm going to prove to them that I know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to sit down in front of the camera and I'm going to start talking about design, and AI is on the rise right now. So I'm sure AI is going to be really like valuable for these agencies and stuff to learn. I'll talk about how AI can be used in creativity, right? So I started making videos about how you can use AI for editing pictures or making AI art and using it for your business and things. And the page just started doing like really well. And people were like, wow, this is so valuable. I'm getting so much information. This is mind blowing. And that feeling that I had when I brought that project into class was the same feeling I was getting from blowing people's minds on the internet. And I realized, like, oh, I still don't need the agency. I was led to this path. I was almost going to quit. And through quitting and going down this path, it forced me into something even higher. I had hit all 5 of those intentions, and I felt the way that I intended to by the end of that year, all 5. And it wasn't through the agency job. It was still just by doing what I love to do. I just turned the camera around to myself and started to, promote my ideas. I was thinking big. I was talking about big ideas and ways that you could use technology and AI, and it it worked. I was redirected, and that is how I got to the point of being like Mr. Grateful on Instagram.
Mm. Yeah, you know what's interesting because you were like, I just love how it comes about because you were back in your element. Like we spoke about like childlike wonder again.
Yeah.
It's like as soon as you tap back into that, it's like things start to work. We even spoke about being kind of like detaching yourself from an outcome. It was almost the outcome that you wanted was the job. Like you actually had detachment. Like you weren't thinking about being a content creator, and it just happened.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful process. You know what? Because I know that you did like almost like a challenge. Like you set yourself a challenge. Um, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna let you say it. Kind of give the context on that. Like when it came to the content creation, the challenge that you underwent.
Yeah. So the challenge was I knew that I wanted to grow my social media quickly. I knew I wanted to go fast. And I wanted to captivate people in a way that had never been done before. Uh, still chasing that wow moment. And I had, I had probably made, I don't know, maybe 15 videos at this point, and I was sitting down one day, just really trying to figure out like how can I tap into this next like stage? How can I break through? And I was sitting down meditating, and the idea just downloaded to me, and I can pinpoint, I can triangulate the different references of inspiration that I got from it. Uh, but I had started a challenge called Agent GPT, and it was to use artificial intelligence to get to 100,000 followers in 30 days. The reason it worked is one, because AI had completely captivated everybody. And it was so interesting to see AI work in this way that nobody had ever seen before. Two, that the stakes were high because it was like, if it doesn't work, then okay, now we know AI is nothing to worry about. It couldn't even make content. So
Yeah.
we're fine, everybody. But if it does work, wow, what does this mean for social media? What does it mean for content creation to be a creator if this does work? It was also interesting because there was a time limit on it, right? People were going to be there every single day to figure out like what was going on. So every day I would post the suggestions that AI was giving me, right? So what I did is I told artificial intelligence who I was, what my brand is, what I wanted to do, what type of content I made, and I said your job is to just get me to 100K in 30 days. I'm going to hit you up every single day for a piece of content idea. Give me the idea, I'll do it. I'll give you the metrics, and then you take those metrics and then adjust the strategy based on the performance of the content that you gave me. And I did that every day. I started to realize that I was having better ideas than AI. So I would use my idea and I would then create the content based on my idea, but I would use it to make sure that it's in alignment with my brand, that it was going to be shareable and savable, and that that it was going to be valuable to the people that were watching it, and that it was like it was in alignment with our values too, right? So I would give it the script that I wrote out, give it to it, and it started to learn over time how I like to talk and how I like to structure my content. So over time, then I could say, give me a script, and then it could give me a script that was more in alignment with me. I would screenshot my metrics every day, put the metrics in there. It would say, okay, I see that it's not, we didn't get as many shares on this one because of that, as the last post, it could have been because of these reasons, right? So over time, it's starting to just become like my agent, my friend, and really helped me through this process. By day 22, we had hit 100,000 followers, which was awesome. I continued on for the next 8 days, and it really just captivated the world. I had hundreds, like thousands of people from all over the world trying to do the challenge themselves, and they started creating their own agent GPTs and like screenshotting the prompt I used and putting it in themselves and using it to like grow their following, right? So for the past year, I've been so grateful because I've been able to connect with people literally all over the world, and help them with their social media using artificial intelligence, and some really interesting realizations have come from that.
You know what? I'm just curious because I want to get into the tactics. There are going to be people that are listening and they're like, uh, they want to create content, but they also want it to be successful. Like they want it to get a certain level of engagement or have impact, but also feel like it's them.
Yeah.
And so I want to get into the tactics of how someone can do that and how potentially AI could help them do that. But before we get to that, did you have any experience with content creation before you did the challenge with AI? Or was it like, this is my first foray into making content and it just blew up out the gate?
I had a whole bunch of failures. I did. I had a whole lot of failures. I tried to I tried to be a hype beast creator for a while, you know what I'm saying? Like spending way too much money on shoes and Yeezys and Jordans and taking pictures of myself in different poses, you know. I tried to teach people about branding when I was doing the whole like branding agency. I tried doing that and making like these carousel posts, if you remember those, where like it was like the pictures and it had the text on it with steps and then you swipe and get the next step, whatever. I tried doing that. I tried like I got angry on Instagram for one moment. There's probably a video of me. I think I probably archived it at one point, but I was just like, everybody needs to stop complaining about this, and that, just like going off. And I was like, yo, okay, this isn't me. And I had failed many times just trying to get in front of the camera and being there. So I'd say anybody who's trying to make content and feels a bit stuck with it, you know, it's just make the next one. Just make the next video, and eventually you'll find yourself through it. Which, no. So yeah, that was my experience. That was the experience.
You know what? I think it's actually an interesting thought experiment. Even if we take like that younger version of Dom, or just like the earlier version of Dom that was doing content, and you're frustrated, and I know what it's like when you're essentially trying everything.
Yeah.
Like you're consistently going back to the drawing board, reimagining, coming back like with new learnings, applying those, still no results. Like it's a deeply frustrating process, especially when you feel like you have something to share that would be of value to the world, but it's not getting what it needs. It's not going places. And so I understand that firsthand. So I actually think it would be really valuable, almost, if you had to give the blueprint to that version of yourself, the one that was frustrated, and you knowing what you know now, though, of like, if you wanted to get 100,000 followers in 30 days and you wanted to use AI kind of in that process, what would kind of be, if you were going to give advice to that person, what would be step one? Like, where would you even begin?
Yeah. Step one is to remove yourself. Step one is to remove yourself. All of the previous failures that I just told you about were because the content was about me. Nobody cares about somebody with 100 followers, 5,000 followers, whatever. It's not about you. Honestly, nobody cares about anybody with 1,000,000 followers. It's still not about you. It wasn't about me. I started to succeed when I made the content about other people, helping other people. People watch things and they spend time on things that they believe is going to help them, whether that's going to entertain them or educate them or inspire them. So the first step is to just remove the idea that it's about you. Everybody tells me that they're worried about what people may think of them on their content, whatever, but also they worry about what they think of themselves. Their perception of themselves stops them. You hear so much people say, I hate the way my voice sounds, right? I'm sure you've heard that before,
Yeah.
or even we've all gone through it before where we hear ourselves speak for the first time. We're like, I hate my voice. I don't like how I sound, right?
Even how you look on camera, so many different things.
So many different things where you're judging yourself before you you're judging yourself first. And you're assuming other people are judging you. And in that moment, you're then judging them and thinking that other people would then be judgmental against you, which if we're on the internet, we know the internet is a ruthless place. It's pretty rough. So I understand that. But the first step is just get out of your own way. If you get out of your own way and remove yourself, then I'm not valuing myself based on what you think of me. I'm valuing myself based on how many people I'm helping. So the metric changes. I'm not measuring myself by the judgment of others anymore. I don't care what you think about me. I just want to make sure I'm helping. And if I'm helping people, then I'm doing the job properly. I'm good. That's the first step, because many people just get in their own way before they even start. Second is to realize that you have everything that you need right now. We have everything we need. You have lived a life up until this point with experience and expertise in something that is going to allow you, that other people would find valuable. This is actually really uncomfortable for me, like just sitting here talking about myself and my story and everything. So I'm like, it's like I don't talk about myself in that way very often,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping that through the process of talking about my story, that somebody else can relate to it and be like, yeah, I'm going through that right now and it may help me. So that's a path that you can take, is realizing that the story that you've lived so far, millions of other people have gone down a very similar path. Each one of us shares like 99.999% of DNA. We're very similar people. I celebrate individual uniqueness, but we're all very similar in many ways as well. So the way that you've lived, other people have lived that way too. So make sure that you celebrate yourself for that by sharing the stories and the things that you're going through. It'll help people. That's a very easy way to just start making content, is what you already have. I got 100,000 followers by only using an iPhone 13. And I only had like a couple practical lights, just like a lamp and I didn't have like expensive things. And I had a very terrible microphone that was gifted to me by the editor on my production team. So I didn't need expensive equipment either. I just needed to make sure that I was trying to help people in the content, right? That's first.
Mm.
If you want to use AI to help you with this process, the first thing that you need to understand is that AI is simply a prediction machine. It's a word predictor. It's just using it's just using it's using it's a large language model that's trained on petabytes of data from the internet, which is like billions of books, and it's predicting how words go together. That's all it's doing, right? So if you just ask it, hey, how can I get to 30,000 or 100,000 followers in 30 days? It's going to give you a very generic response based on the averages of the internet, right? What you want to do is give it some more information about yourself so that it narrows the words that it's giving you, right? If you're telling it, well, I'm a chef, then the information and the words that it's going to use, the lexicon is going to be a bit more narrowed to that slice of lexicon in the human language around being a chef, right? That's a very like generic, vague example. But what I would do is I give it information about what I actually do. Ask it, say, hey, what information do you need from me in order to understand my brand? And go and just answer the questions that it asks you. And then you can say, okay, please export this as a PDF. Say, okay, it'll turn those answers that you gave it into a PDF. Take that PDF, and then if you're in like Chat GPT, I'm speaking on like if you're using Chat GPT right now, right? This is what I've been teaching people how to do. And if you're in Chat GPT, just go over to the left, hit Explore GPTs, in the top right corner, hit Create, and then hit Configure, and then go to the bottom, scroll down, hit Upload Files, and then upload that PDF with all the answers that you just gave it about your brand. Now it has a solid reference of information about who you are. Okay, go up top, name it, social media GPT, whatever, and then save it. Go to the top right, hit Create, click Share, Only Me, Update, Save, and then go use it. And now when you're using and asking questions about your brand, or what direction should I take, or you can ask it, now generate me a social media strategy based on my brand. It's going to base it off of you, not just the generic internet, right? You can even take that strategy, do the same thing. You can then export that as a PDF, put that into the knowledge base. Now it has your brand, your brand and your marketing strategy locked in. You can start asking it more questions. You can ask it. You can even upload templates. So let's say you have a creator that you really love. You can go on Instagram, download the transcription from their content, and then just upload the transcription into the GPT and say, make me a template, a script template based on this piece of content. Take that script template, upload it as a knowledge base, and now you can say, generate me a script in my brand using that template. And it'll use that template, but make it in your voice. Now you have some data. Now you have some information that you can use that's tailored to you. If you do that enough, while at the same time uploading screenshots of your insights from Instagram, it'll connect the content that it gave you, that you recorded and posted, with the insights and the performance of that content, and start to make those connections. And over time, it'll learn your brand, and it'll start to give you some insights that could be personally valuable to you. that was the process that I use and that I teach other people.
Okay, no, that's really cool. Okay, let's get even deeper with it. And I love the way that you started, which is before you even get to ChatGPT or the platforms, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is, it's actually almost like going, zooming out and starting with yourself
Yeah.
and being, and I think it goes back to what you mentioned earlier about like kind of this scientific method of starting just by asking questions, start by curiosity. And so it's like everyone that's listening could just ask themselves the question, if I just wanted to provide the most value for someone based on my experiences, my skills, what I know, what would I share?
Yes.
And that will kind of give you a start point, which rather than starting with, oh, I want to look cool on camera or, what's going to get me views, which is all like, it starts with you. Start with the person on the other end of the screen.
Yes.
And so I think just as a foundation, that's a really valuable place to start before we even begin the conversation about AI and ChatGPT. Once we move to the AI stuff, I think and we've had conversations about this even prior. I think one of the things that opened up my mind when I was speaking to you about AI and ChatGPT is that you treat it fundamentally different than 99.9% of people, right? So, and this is, and I know because I'm in the 99.9% of people. So this is what we do, right? We go to AI, we kind of almost treat it like, I don't know, like Quora maybe? Like you ask it like a very direct question. You give no context really. You ask it a very direct question and then you want the answer. Or like Google almost. You
Right.
just type it in Google and it's
Right.
treated the same way.
Right.
I want to go viral on YouTube.
Right.
How do I go viral? Hey chat, how do I go viral on YouTube?
Right.
The way that I saw that you do it, it's actually like a conversation.
Yeah.
It's almost like a dynamic conversation that you're having with AI, where it's actually learning about you. You're giving it all of this context. You're asking questions. You're giving it answers like back and forth. And you're almost building, it's like personalized to you. And I actually think that is a mindset switch that people need to kind of make around AI to get the value that you've gotten from it. Can you kind of just, you can speak to it even better than I can. Can you kind of explain that? Like the mindset switch of rather than question answer, it's actually a conversation. It's always building and you're adding in new information, new data. Speak about that.
Yeah. So if you think about your relationship with anybody, or you think about hiring an employee for your company, most people think about artificial intelligence like Google, like you're saying. I think about artificial intelligence like a friend that I've just never met before, right? I'm trying to give them information about me so that they can then give me more value based on their expertise. However, this friend knows everything that's ever been on the internet, right? So if I ask it a generic question, it's going to give me a generic answer. Everything in the world is based on balance. Everything in the universe is based on balance, like we were talking about before, right? And whatever we get in, we get out. We breathe in, we breathe out. Everything in the world works this way. So we have to think about things as in good data in, good data out. If you're asking it a vague question, you will get a vague answer. If you are giving it very specific information, you will get a very specific answer. The way that I think about my relationship with AI is the same way I think about my relationship with the world, with myself, and the universe. What I give it is what I will get, and that's a very stable foundation to think about artificial intelligence. I try to tailor its responses as closely as possible by giving it the information that it needs to help me. Anybody who has hired an employee can then use those same foundations that they've used to hire an employee and train somebody on a specific task to also use artificial intelligence in that way as well. So what you give it, you will get out. And that is a very good framework for understanding how to communicate with AI.
I want to make it even more real for people. So let's say that I've done step one, which is I have clarity on what value I can provide to the world. Like I know what the value add is.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking to integrate AI within that in the content creation process. You mentioned that you will like tell AI the questions to ask you. Like, what are some of those? People don't really understand how to put the prompts together. Like, what is even an example of like a prompt that you would give ChatGPT at an early point so that you can kind of start this collaborative process?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you can there's a process of computational thinking, which is essentially understanding the many steps that it takes to get to the outcome that you want. So if you have an outcome, let's say, give me an example of an outcome that you may want for your business.
For my business or content creation?
Either, yeah, let's say content creation.
Content creation, I want to get 10,000 followers in the next 10 days.
10,000 followers in the next 10 days. Okay. So if that's your goal, first we need to state your goal, right? You need to write that down. Make sure you know what you want. AI is a really good mirror for you to understand even what it is that you want. Now we have a magic wand that we can wave and prompt whatever it is that we want in the world, but you have to know what you want first before you ask. So knowing you want 10,000 followers in 10 days, okay, that's your goal. Now there's many steps now that are going to come from that. What you can say is I think that people may even overcomplicate it. Put in that goal and then ask ChatGPT, what are the steps that I need to get to this goal? Just ask it that. What are the steps I need to get to this goal? Okay. It'll let's just do
Let's
it.
fill it out.
Let's just do it.
Like
Right?
a live workshop it.
Let's just do it. Let's just do a live workshop real quick. Okay. So 10,000 followers in 10 days.
Yeah.
I'm putting in here, I want 10,000 followers in 10 days. Okay. And then I'm going to say, what steps do I need to take? Actually, on what platform?
Let's do Instagram.
On Instagram. Okay. In 10 days on Instagram. What steps do I need to take? It says you're going to need a strategic and intensive approach. You're going to need to optimize your profile. You're going to need to create high quality content, engage with the audience, leverage Instagram features. Okay, so now we have this, run contests and giveaways, whatever. Now that we have this, now there's many steps that each one of those are going to take, right? So now we're going to break that down, optimize the profile. Well, if we need to optimize the profile, the first thing is bio. Now there's many steps to then the bio. Now we're going to break that down. You get to this realization through going through these things is, oh, well, I'm going to need it to like, what am I supposed to write in my bio though? Then if you say, well, hey, GPT, write my bio for me. It's going to be like, like, I don't know.
I don't know anything about you.
I don't know anything about you. Right? So then you get to this wall where you're like, oh, okay, this is where I come in. Give it the information that then it's going to need to then take care of these services and do the steps that it needs, right? So you wouldn't tell your employee, hey, go. You wouldn't hire somebody that knows nothing about your business and then tell them to go do a task.
Yeah.
You need to give it some information about you. And people overcomplicate that process. Open up the AI, start using it, and asking it the questions that you would ask the best expert in that field. Ask it that question, ask it the steps it needs to get there. If you come to a point, ask it what information you need from me in order to do your job properly. It'll ask you those questions, fill it out, give those answers to the AI, and then have it do the rest of that work for you. It's an iterative process. I talk about circular relationship with AI, where this is you, this is the AI, you're going around and around. You're giving it a piece of information, and then it's going to give you a response. Based on the response, you give it some information, and it's a flywheel. It should go back and forth. Everything in the universe works that way, just like a back and forth, in and out circular process. Give it the information, get a response, and go back and forth with it. It's much simpler than people like actually make it out to be. And soon, AI will just be invisible and intuitive to the point where uh, you can give it a task and it will have the agency to go and act on these things for you. That's when we get to like AGI and super intelligence and things like that. It'll just start taking the action for you.
I remember when we were speaking, I think you put it really well. You said um, AI, like right now, it's like a strategic brain and it's like the ultimate organizing function.
Yeah.
So like you're actually giving a lot of the answers because you're the one that knows you.
Yeah.
But it's like organizing it. It's kind of providing the strategic lens so that you can actually get the clarity to kind of pursue the goal and like build it into reality.
Yeah.
Um, okay, that makes perfect sense. Once I kind of go through this back and forth and I've gotten these answers and I have the clarity, what is the process of how I take this kind of strategy and organization that ChatGPT has given me and actually make a final video?
Yeah.
And like kind of spell that out to me. Like even when you were doing it, were you using, I don't know, like what were the different tools that you were using? Were you using like a mid journey or whatever? What was even like the scripting process of how you were creating these videos? Like how do I go from, okay, AI's defined it for me, it's given me the strategy, it's given me kind of the overarching structure. Now I narrow that down to a piece of creative that will perform.
Right. So yeah, I would go back to the giving it the templates that it needs for it to go about that process. Okay. So let me just break down from start to finish
Okay, go for
the creative process. If you want to make a video with artificial intelligence on social media, this is exactly what I would do. Okay. So first, I would give it some information about my brand, who I am, where I live, my age, what type of people I want to make content for. So going back to our convo about the value that you want to provide, what is the value that you want to provide, right? I tell everyone this in my class. I say virality doesn't equal followers. Do not worry about views. Virality does not equal followers. What equals being followed is leading. Like that might have gotten lost in context lost in translation over time. To be followed, lead. Where are you taking people? Where are they going to go? Define that clearly and give that to the AI. Tell it that. That's very important. Give it information about what type of content, the format. So are you doing there's format and then platform. Short form content on Instagram, long form tutorials on YouTube, skits, short form skits on TikTok, right? What is the format and then what platform do you want to do, right? If you don't know that, you could give it your mission and then say what format and platform is going to be best for my goal, right? So if I want fast growth, short form content on TikTok and Instagram is going to be best. If I want sustainable, long-term, monetizable content through sponsorships, then I'm going to do long form content on YouTube, right? So just tell it what your goal is, what type of content that you're trying to make, what your mission is, and then you can even ask what platform and format should I use for that, right? Once you get to that step, you can take that information. I would put all of this into a PDF and I would actually create like a custom GPT doing this. It's very easy to do. Like I said before, you go to Explore GPTs and Chat GPT, go up to the top right and hit create, and then scroll down until you see upload files, and then upload the files that then include information about your brand, right? This information about your mission and the type of content that you want to make. Okay, now that you got that out the way, now you can either say, give me ideas of content that I can make, and it can do that. Or if you have an idea for content that you want to make, you can upload that idea in there. A really important part of content creation and making sustainable media is making sure that the first few seconds of that content is valuable and makes a promise. The person that's watching it should obviously know like what they're going to get from the content in that first few seconds, right? So what I do is I'll have the AI give me 4 options for hooks for that piece of content, right? So I have it set to where I can click content idea for the day. It has all the information about my brand. it'll give me immediately 4 content ideas for that day, right? I'll pick an idea. And then it'll move on and say, here's 4 options for hooks. Then I'll select one of the hooks. Now you come on to the point of actually scripting the content, right? What you can do is you can say, just give me a script and say the script. This is where the human being now comes in. This is where you have to take action. Take the script, look into the camera, or don't. Just look and just do the microphone. Don't even look at the camera. For the first few times that I make a video, I'm just saying the script without even looking at the camera. I have the camera running and I have my microphone on, but I'm just speaking. So just speak, record yourself saying the script, and if it doesn't quite sound right to you, then this is where your own human agency comes in. This is where you can then come in and say, yeah, like I don't really like this idea. You know, I want to say it this way. You can start to speak more naturally. That's going to come with time. That's okay. Give yourself grace and know that you don't have to post that video. Just be in front of the camera and practice speaking on camera. Okay. What you can also do is you can take that, you can then take the recording or the transcription of what you're speaking on camera, give it to the AI, and say, hey, this is how I actually like to talk. How would you define this personality? How would you define my tone? You can then take that tone and say, okay, now make all of the scripts match my tone now, right? That's this circular iterative process. You're giving it information and then it's coming back to you with something else. It's iterative, right? And once I record the piece of content, I'll look into the camera. Back when I was like first making content, I had my iPad up. I would just open up Chat GPT on there, or I would go to my notes, take all of the script from Chat GPT, put it on my notes. I'd have the notes there. I'm looking at the notes, and I have the iPad like right here, cameras right here, and I would just speak one line at a time. I have this line, speak it to the camera. All right, got the next line, speak it to the camera, and I was just doing that back and forth. I would then take that video, put it into CapCut, cut out all the dead space, make sure it's like nice and crispy. AI has like automatic captions in CapCut. So I would just go down, click auto captions, and then I have my line. So now I have my video that I've made. Yeah, if I ever need like stock imagery that was like realistic, I'd go to like ArtGrid. But other than that, if I wanted something more custom, I could go to like Midjourney, generate a picture. Then I could take that picture and put it into Runway. It'll turn it into a video. And now I have like some stock imagery from just that I generated that's unique to me that I can then overlay into the videos and things as help. So that's really the process. After I make the video, post it on YouTube or post it on Instagram, I go to my insights for that video. I screenshot the insights where it has the likes, views, comments, shares, saves. Take that. I upload that picture into Chat GPT and I say, hey, this is the response that I got from that video. This is the performance of that video. Give me an analysis. It'll analyze, and then I'll say, all right, next video. And then, that's the process. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's so good. And that's so detailed as well. I'm glad you did that.
Okay. I hope people were like taking notes.
Yeah.
Like,
they're probably like pausing the video.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I was just thinking about this as you were speaking. The capability of ChatGPT, it has like memory. So what I mean by that is, because you're uploading like PDFs, you're uploading all of this material into ChatGPT. And then let's say that you close your laptop or you close the browser, and then, I don't know, next day you start it up again. It's remembered all of these prior conversations, and it's like, say that I'm doing my version of your challenge and I'm on day 25. It's remembering that I had one of the insights from day 2, and it's still kind of giving me responses. Like, is there that memory component to it? Or is it almost like, at the start of each day when you make the new content idea, you're kind of like refreshing its memory?
Back in the day, this was last year. It seems like time's moving so fast now, right? back last year when I was doing this, when I first started the challenge, I had to use the same chat thread for a month to so that it would like remember everything, right?
Yeah.
Today we have updates and new features in chat GPT. It does literally have memory across chats. There's three ways that it actually remembers things about you. One is custom instructions, which is you can, if you go to your settings, if you're on mobile, it's like the bottom left. You click on your profile. If you're on desktop, it's the top right. You click on your profile, go down to settings and custom instructions. And in custom instructions, you can type in information that you want it to remember about you across all chats. So what I do is I put in like my name, where I live, like my mission, my goals, things that never change. That's what I put in there, right? My birth date, how old I am, favorite color, just your aesthetic, you know what I'm saying? Your tone, my personality, things like that. Something I've actually done is I took the 16 personalities tests. I took the personal values test. I took my astrology chart. I took my human design results. I took all of this information about myself, the results of these personality tests. I uploaded it into ChatGPT, and I told it to give me an analysis of my personality, describe my personality and my characteristics and my like values and all of that into like a concise document, right? And then I take that and I add that to my custom instructions. So it just knows who I am across the board, right? The other way that it knows that it has memory is through literal memory. So if you go into the same way, your instruction or your settings, and you go to personalization. In personalization, there's a button there that says like memory. You can turn this on or off. But what happens if you have it on is as you're talking to it across any chat, there will be instances where it'll say memory updated, or you can say, remember this about me, right? So I can say, I only wear black clothes. I only wear black. Type that in, and then you can say, remember this about me. And it'll add that to then a memory base. And you can go in there to the memory and read all the things that it's like memorized about you. Those things will be across all chats. The third way it has memory is in custom instructions, or I'm sorry, custom GPTs. Custom GPTs are what I've been saying. Go to explore GPTs and then create in the top right. You can make your own GPT and then set a library of a knowledge base that is going to remember whenever you use that specific GPT, right? So I have one for every department of my business. I have an agent GPT for social media. I have a customer service, which is trained on the different templates of responses and FAQs about my business. I have one for my website copy where I literally put all the copy from all of my websites in there, my revenue streams, and then it'll give me information about, I can ask it questions about how I can improve, the website, the different offerings I have, all of my financials from the past, since the beginning of the business. I put those in charts and CSV files. I upload those in there for my like CFO GPT, Chief Financial Officer GPT. I have a legal GPT that's trained on all the templates of the different like legal documents that I use, like just like speaking engagement documents, LOIs, things like that. I have those templates in there. So anytime that I have a new engagement, I can then give it information about the engagement. It'll fill out that contract, and then I can deliver that to whoever I need. So custom GPTs are threads, are specific GPTs that you can upload a knowledge base of templates and information about you. And whenever you use that, it'll be able to access those files that you've uploaded, and then use the memory about you from your custom instructions, and then your memory to then like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That is crazy.
Do you understand?
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Okay, all right,
I think
all
my eyes are like, I'm like, that is
Yeah.
crazy because you basically have like a full team,
A full team.
but it's just like AI. It's just like these
Full
AI
team.
agents.
Yeah,
That
full
is
team, full team.
crazy. Oh, snap. That is cool. Okay, you know what? To bring it back to content specifically.
Yeah.
So, there's going to be people that do that and they go on this journey and they start learning more and more about AI, and they learn about, I feel like it's almost like a mindset. It's a muscle in a way. You have to get used to how to communicate with it, how to collaborate, bring it into the process, but still add in your own personal thing so it's you. It doesn't feel like a machine. The content doesn't feel like a machine is doing it. It feels personalized. The question that kind of came to my mind was how do I know it's working? In the terms of like, okay, so I start uploading these reels, and obviously I've used ChatGPT in the process. Like, I'm curious, even in your story, was it like kind of just immediately off the bat, the thing went viral and it was like getting views and you were getting followers from doing it? Because I can see a lot of people that it's like the first 8 days of the 10-day 10K challenge, it's like nothing is happening.
Yeah.
And so, how do I know it's working and I just need to keep doing it longer? How do I know it's not working and I actually need to iterate more on the process? Like, I guess, what is that process of actually getting better?
It'll happen naturally and effortlessly. If you commit yourself to finding a conclusion with this, it'll happen naturally. It happened naturally for me. If you commit yourself a to getting a conclusion on a question and a hypothesis that you had, commit yourself to going through the timeline of your experiment, that answer will come to you across the board and anything in life. If you watch the first video I had, the Agent GPT, I just said, I was like, we'll see if this works. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think I started it by like, I hired GPT as my social media agent. Can it get me to 100,000 followers in 30 days? It was a question. I didn't know. I didn't say, I'm going to use AI to get me to 100,000 followers in 30 days. I said, can it get me to 100,000 followers in 30 days, right? Set this up for yourself as an experiment with anything that you want to do. Like, can AI improve my relationship? Can AI help? Can even remove AI from the equation? Say, can you learn a new skill that's going to increase your income by $100,000 a month? Open that up to yourself. Can you become president? Can you get an interview on your favorite TV show? Whatever, like ask yourself as this question with a timeline on it, and then just see it through. You will see iterative improvement, like no matter what. You will improve in anything that you commit yourself to over a period of time. It's just like law, it will happen. It'll happen naturally. So don't even worry about if something's like working or not. If you're committing yourself to something and you're going through it, you will improve as a person through that process, right? Now, if you're curious, like, well, am I actually getting followers from using AI as my social media agent? It's like, well, if you want to just start using AI for that, just screenshot your metrics, put it in there and say, hey, is this actually working? And if it's not working, ask it why it's not working, right? It'll surprise you. It'll really surprise you. There was a time, it was my first podcast experience. It was in New Jersey, actually. It was with Rebel Road podcast. And I had been off of social media for a few days. I was getting really scared that my engagement was going to go down. I was worried that I was going to let everybody down from not being on social media, from like not following my journey, whatever. And I told that to the AI, to my agent. I was like, yo, I haven't posted in a few days. I'm really worried that like I'm going to lose all of my engagement. Everybody's going to, they're going to be upset with me. And the response it gave me just completely surprised me and made me feel so like comforted almost. It made me feel comforted. I thought it said, it was like, just be authentic, just be genuine and let people know why you're taking a break. If you're out recording a podcast, maybe you can make some content about that. It was very like empathetic with me. And it almost learned my personality and my behavior over the course of talking to it, where it was like empathetic with me when I gave it a concern that I had. The same thing happened when I got spammed. I got spammed like on like day 18. I got spammed. Somebody bought followers for me and put me at like 180,000 followers or whatever. And it just like kind of ruined the whole, like it made me feel so defeated, I was like, dang, like now everybody's gonna think I like cheated.
Mm.
You know, it's a whole bunch of fake followers overnight. Like what? I'm gonna lose like my trust with my following. And I told the AI that. And the AI was like, just be genuine and tell your audience what happened and how you plan to make it right and the steps that you're taking going forward, and let me know what they say and I'll help you after that. I was like, wow, okay. Like, and it worked.
Yeah.
It worked. From that, I ended up getting like a huge newsletter following. I was like, okay, since this happened, everybody, I told everybody that it happened. Since this happened, I'm gonna release a newsletter so I can protect our relationship. Ended up getting a huge newsletter following from that I now have been using to sell my private group, and now I'm selling the offerings that I have today from that thing that happened that I thought was terrible, right in the moment, based on the AI suggestion. So, um, if you're ever worried if it's working, like just ask.
Mm. You know what I love about the way that you think about it? It's actually a process. Like it's part of a process. And I think maybe initially when you get into it, you're fixated on the outcome of like, I want the 10,000 followers in 10 days. But it's almost, that's not actually important, is the 10,000 followers in 10 days. It's the process of understanding how to use AI as this tool that can like supercharge you towards these goals that you have and this vision
Yeah.
that you have. And so when you start to see it as a process, it's kind of what we mentioned earlier. Like it's the becoming independent of outcome or becoming detached
Exactly.
from these outcomes.
Exactly.
And it actually gives you something far greater.
Yeah.
And I remember even you were showing me stuff about like your fitness routines and like the way that AI has been able to integrate and help your life is much more than just the 100,000 followers in 22 days that you did initially.
Yes.
And I think that's the big thing, is treating it like a process and treating it like this conversation. It's this two-way street. It's not just give me this thing and it spits out an answer that gives it to
Right.
you.
Right.
I think that, yeah, that's really valuable. I think it's going to
Yeah.
open it up for people.
Yeah. So I hope that after getting some of these like step by step things, and realizing that it is a process that way, I know that when I speak, sometimes like it can sound like you're beating around the bush. It can sound like you're not giving me a direct, straightforward answer and I need steps. Well, okay, I can give you some steps, but when you follow these steps, you're going to realize the reason why I was telling you these more soft skill approaches to this thing, because that's what you're really going to need once you realize, once you go through these steps, that, oh, it is more about me than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I got into AI and social media, is because it's a path towards self-actualization. You have to understand who you are and what you want in order to get the responses you want from AI and to be able to face yourself in front of a camera and post yourself online. It takes self-realization, or at least a desire to realize who you are, to succeed in that area. And I, I, so many people, we see it so much of people who have this massive goal, they reach it, and then they're not happy. They're not satisfied. They're not fulfilled. Why do we continue to do it? Why do we see people all the time that are just blatantly unhappy, like clearly unhappy and just like not motivated with life anymore because they've had this goal, they reach it, and they realize the goal wasn't the point. The process that they went through was the point, but they were so blinded by the goal that they didn't even enjoy that process. So I'm telling everybody, like, stop going down that path. We've seen it so many times. You don't need to be that story. It doesn't have to be your story. Stop having goals. Have more questions. Question the world. Question why you go about things the way that you do. Question the way that you think. Question how high you can really question, how big of questions you can ask.
Mm.
And once you ask bigger questions, you will come up with better answers, right? The goals that people have are distracting them from the process itself. And it will be realized, the steps that I give you will help you to realize that softer skill approach of self-realization. Once you take the steps,
Mm.
people will eventually like realize that. and understand, like, all he wasn't beating around the bush. He was giving me an actual realer answer than I asked for. And uh, after if anybody's watched until this point, if they go back and then watch from the beginning might make more sense.
Yeah.
So
I think that's really what I love about these conversations is like, and I was telling you this even before, the context is so important because when you add the context, it's like everything makes sense. And so even when, I ask you, I'm like, if someone wanted to get 100,000 followers in the next 30 days, where would you start? And it doesn't start with the social media platforms. It doesn't start with this is the viral framework or hack or whatever. It starts with this understanding of yourself first.
Yeah.
And and that's why I mentioned it earlier, like, I love what you mentioned around the scientific method, because when you start just asking questions, you have to tap into that curiosity. It forces you to be process driven.
Yes.
Because you can't focus on the outcome. It's just it's the process of asking questions, getting better answers, asking better questions. It's an iterative approach.
Yeah.
On that point, and this is where the final piece that I want to cover is you've done something remarkable in two senses for me when I look at it. So, first of all, you've managed to build a committed, engaged audience really based off your personal interests, your personality, values that you want to share, like a message. You've managed to build an audience and get eyeballs on that. The second piece is you've also managed to build like a life for yourself, like an income, a way of life of doing that. And so we even spoke about this a bit before. There's a lot of people that are getting views, that are getting attention on social media, but there's no life that's following from it. There's no money that's following from that.
Yes.
And so walk people through that. Like, what was the process of like, okay, I have these followers, I have these 300,000 followers. These are the ways that I can actually monetize it in a way that doesn't destroy the brand,
right?
Doesn't destroy the media that you've just built.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think about that?
Get a button. Get a button. Everybody needs a button. I feel like you are not free in the world if you don't have a button. If you don't have a button on the internet, there's no chance of being financially free. If you don't own a button on the internet, there's no way to be financially free. You have to have a button that somebody can click that says buy now, or a button that says sign up. You need a button. How is anyone expecting? How may we expect to make money on the internet without a button for people to click to give us that? Like, if you think about the best companies in the world, the biggest companies in the world, think about how many buttons they have. Think about Amazon, right? Imagine how many buttons they have on their website. They have, oh my God. Just the number of that is mind blowing. So many buttons, and that's why they're a superpower.
Yeah.
Right? You need buttons. So I just decided when I was going about my buttons, what buttons do I want to create for the different people that I want to help? And I knew that I would have people who would like to spend a lot of money, and then people who didn't have much money, but they wanted to at least like participate, right? So I created buttons along the ladder along almost the pyramid of the types of people that would like to. I created a solution at multiple price points. That's what I did. I created a solution at multiple price points with, if we're going back to the beginning, the vision of staying valuable in the age of AI. That means a lot. There's a lot that could go into staying valuable in the age of AI. For me, it's been making sure that I am becoming, I can become independently, financially stable. I can learn about this technology, and I can realize myself. So I created solutions for those 3 things at different price points. We have things for free, like my meditations on there, completely free. The written tutorials on there, completely free, right? If you just want to learn and kind of get your feet wet, free. Instagram, free. Free content. Then you can go all the way up to the top and it's like, collaborate with me, right? And it's like, okay, like it's not even a price. You just go in there and like say what you want,
Yeah.
and then there's everything, in between. There's community, there's meet with me one-on-one, there's sign up for the private group, there's tiers so that if you can't afford this one, you can afford that one. So people should think about, how can I help people in how am I trying to help people? And then how can I create an option for people at different price points to meet them, right? That creates a sense of inclusivity that would not push away. There's an option for everybody, right? So that's what you need to think about. I'm not alienating or excluding anybody from my community because there's an option for everyone. And I'm also being fully honest and transparent with them. Like, it's when I first got a bunch of followers, what I did is my second failure, well, my 189th failure or something like that in my life, right? Happened after Agent GPT, actually. I made this video that was, I want to make $1 million in 100 days using AI. That was the goal. And I put it out there for everybody. And I'm getting people in the comments that are like, wow, I've never been so invested in somebody's life ever. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh no. And I'm going through it. I'm doing a few days and I come up with this really big idea. Like, okay, I'm going to create teachers using AI that are trained off of all the best teachers in the world. Then people can go up and talk to those AIs to learn, right? And then I start hitting up software developers. Then I start drawing out what the app is going to be. And then now I don't even have time to make the content. Then when I make the content, I'm making content about my problems and like things I'm going through. And then I'm making content about money. And I'm like, the brand started to turn into something. I saw the potential for the brand to start to turn into a finance brand and like a rough, grimy, gritty startup brand. And I didn't want that. That's not like who I am. It's not my life. I'm more of an artist who appreciates speaking to human beings and having big ideas than I am a product manager. You know what I'm saying? So I just told everybody, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing this morally. Like, it's not me. I'm out. And I took some time. I moved to New York and I just, I isolated myself and I just found out, like, what do I naturally like to do? What I naturally like is just to teach people. So I started to, I made buttons that would help me to teach more people. And I was honest with everybody about it. So if anybody wants to make more money online, make buttons at different price points so that people can actually like hire you for, buy from you, whatever that is. So you can start to make money and be transparent with everyone about like how you're doing it.
Yeah. You know what? And we can end here.
Is he giving us time up?
Yeah, we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah.
But like I was even looking on your website, you have like a few different offers and things that you do. So you have consulting. Obviously, I'm assuming you do some stuff like brand deals or like sponsored stuff on videos. Do you?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
I've worked with Meta. I've worked with Adobe. I've worked with Mind Valley, Founder. And there's other companies that I really want to like work with. I want to work with more like lifestyle and like fashion brands. I would love to work with the fashion brands that inspired me from like a young age.
Yeah.
I'd love to work with more like maybe it's like some car companies, some like meditation essentials companies and things like that. So yeah, I'm trying to not get away from tech, but like I want to be more of a full individual, right? So I only have worked with like those top tech companies, and then everything else is kind of like off limits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So some brands, but like I don't rely on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You even mentioned earlier that you're doing like a community. I know you do public speaking. So you kind of have like these different revenue streams and channels. I'm curious, almost if you went back to back to the earlier version of Dom, who's like, you've started to build this following, there's attention. If you were kind of, because I think it's almost like an iterative approach that you're taking, right? Like you're continuously building these different streams of income. But if you just had to give someone a place to start of like someone who's a creator similar in the sense that you are, where almost being like an artist is important to them. Like having like a message, connecting with people, staying true to that message is important. And you were like, okay, this is a good way that you can do that. And, you know, it is actually going to bring in some revenue for you. Is there like one of those streams, one of those channels that you would recommend almost as a way to get started?
The easiest one to do is like paid meetings, because all you need is yourself and your camera, which you already have. That's the easiest way for anybody to make money on the internet, is a button that just says like meet me, and charge any amount of money that you think per hour. Because people, if you make content online, people look up to you, and they have these questions where they want to know who you are and what you do and how you do it, and to walk me through that process, right? One on one. So just have a button on there that's like meet me, so that people can reach out. It takes no money. It doesn't cost money. You can use Acuity on Squarespace. I think it might be like $15-$20 a month or something like that. But you could also just do like a Google Meet link and then send them an invoice through Square, something like that. So just have a button that says like meet me, and that's a really easy way for people to get started, because you've done something. You've at least created content. You're getting out there, and people may want to like reach out to you for understanding how you do what you do. So that's a really good way. Um, Another good way is just to have a button for like brand deals and things like that, like a collaborate button. So if people want to collaborate with you, they can click on that button and like send information about the collaboration that they have in mind. That's a really great way if you are creating content, because attention is currency now. So the more eyes that you have, you don't even necessarily need to be doing anything valuable to the world. You can just be making people laugh. Well, that's valuable to the world. I'm sorry. Making people laugh is very, very valuable. I was on the plane the other day just having a terrible, like my brain was just being really negative, and I just started watching like Kai Cenat and Kevin Hart, and they're just being fools, like dancing. And I was like, this made me happy. So
Yeah.
that's very like valuable to the world. I guess I mean not educational or not like inspirational. You can just be entertaining, make people laugh, get attention, and then sign up for brand deals, and then just make a limit of how many brand deals you do per month, and then be transparent about your audience about it, with your audience about it. That's another one that doesn't cost any money, and there's no like overhead to it. You're just getting money in it, immediately. I'm trying to think of ways that you can make money that don't have overhead or an initial cost. And that's typically just like you. Another thing I do is those custom GPTs I was telling you about. I make those custom GPTs, and I have those for sale on the website. So I've already built them out with all of the information that somebody would need. So then you go in there, you can just buy it, and then it already has the steps and the buttons and everything. So you don't have to do prompting. You can just click a button, and it's going to create the content for you, or it'll give you the workout plan for you based on like your body and everything like that. So whatever you do, like let's say you wanted to create a custom GPT, you could have a Callum Johnson GPT, and it's just like, it's trained on your personality. It's trained on all the information you know about starting up a podcast, and you sell that, and then people can go in there and ask questions about like how they can start up their podcast based on your knowledge. You know what I'm saying? So that doesn't cost me anything either. It's completely free to make, but it's just my knowledge that I'm putting in there, right? So those are 3 like income streams that cost no money. And then to start, it's just you and a little bit of your upfront investment. And you can actually directly help people through that with whatever you have right now.
No, I love it, man. And thank you so much for coming on. I think one of the things that's like really cool about what you're sharing, I think there's actually 2 things that are really cool, and I'll start with this. I think the first thing is that we're in the age of AI, and it's gonna be this way moving forward. And so when you even speak about like the process, like there's way more value in the process of understanding how to use AI than even the outcome of what you initially wanted getting into it.
Agreed.
And when you even explain like you can sell the custom GPTs. Like just the skill set of knowing how to use AI is going to be extremely in demand in and of itself. I think so that's just valuable to people, and everything you've shared has a lot of value to it. I think it's also just cool for me now that we kind of like we know each other personally. It's cool hearing the story and understanding like you're just going to take it to greater and greater lengths. And it's I'm sure there'll be a point where we get you back on and it's like I don't even know what the Instagram will be at, and there'll probably be something else. And it will be a cool moment just to like reflect on it, and for people to see the entire story of how it unfolded.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And I really appreciated the convo and the ability to just, the opportunity to just talk about myself for a little bit.
On that point, tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, people can find me on Instagram at Mr.grateful. And I think I'm starting a new chapter. I ironically, I kind of wanted to, expand my brand in the same way I expand these other projects that I have in terms of like expanding beyond artificial intelligence. I want to start. We're at a point right now where people don't people don't trust the companies that are building tech, and they also don't see AI as like actually creative or making art, right? So we need to better understand technology and better understand people. So my brand is I'm using my platform now to talk to more people. And what I'm doing is I'm having more like interviews with just like strangers and my following. And I'm going to open up my calendar for people to just first come, first serve, come in there and just talk to me. And that's going to be a majority of my content is actually solving hands-on problems that people are having with their life, their relationship, or with technology, social media, money, whatever it is. Just like having real problems with real people that have been in the community from the beginning and then using that as the content. So that's going to be on Instagram at Mr. Grateful. It's mr.grateful. And then I'll probably end up starting like my YouTube from that, doing like long
You're
form
looking forward
things.
to
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be
Yeah.
good.
So, and then I have Grateful Future, which is a page. I just recently acquired a previous AI page to give me kind of a head start. And then I am posting more like tutorials and futuristic news, straightforward, blunt, um, like no BS AI news on Grateful Future so that I can still have that for people who want it, but
Mm,
then start to use my personal brand as a platform for people.
mm,
And that'll be on Grateful Future. And then Mr. Grateful, mr.grateful is where you can find me on Instagram.
mm. That's awesome, man. I love to see the vision and the mission that you're on, man.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Thanks, fam. I
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
it. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. It's really a dream for me that I get to do this. It's surreal that this is what I do full time and every week. So if you enjoy the content, if you enjoyed the conversation, the stories, please hit that subscribe button. It helps us immeasurably with growing the channel, with getting guests, all of those things. So please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.